1 hour of focus a day can change your life. You haven't experienced anything near what you're capable of. And if you learn how to unlock that power, you can do what most people consider impossible. Unfortunately, most people have the idea of success completely backward. They think they need to grind for 12 hours a day, like their favorite entrepreneur, to see any form of result. The reality is, you have responsibilities. I get it. Some of you can't just magically scrape back time. You may have a job, kids, spouse. Those things are important, meaning you probably have 1 hour a day you can put toward a better future. And that's a great thing, because you can drastically change your life in 365 hours. 1 hour a day, one meaningful project, one vision for your future. If you can spend 8 hours building someone else's dreams, you can spend 1 hour building your own. You need a deep sense of clarity that allows you to make the most of the time you currently have. And you need to feel like your efforts are making a difference in your life. A pattern I've noticed in successful creatives and CEOs that didn't sacrifice their life for success is that they physically worked very little, yet people see them as hard workers. Mentally, they were always thinking, plotting, and scheming. They worked in their mind, and once they were clear on their idea, they executed with speed that others couldn't compete with. Productivity is like fitness, and you wouldn't train 8 hours a day with no food or sleep and expect to make progress. The same applies to the mind. With that, there are 3 types of work. Building, intense bursts of deep work to bring a project to life, like a product, service, or brand. Maintenance, consistent and often repetitive work that you've systemized to keep what you built alive, like marketing or customer service. Recovery, subconscious work that almost everyone ignores. The rest, leisure, and lack of narrow focus stress that allows breakthrough ideas to form the future of your work. Your goal, then, is to build for 1 hour a day until you are able to pursue what you want full-time. Then you start to think about transitioning into maintenance work. But what do you build? How do you pierce through the distractions and inner voice that seems to be your enemy? Where do you find a never-ending source of motivation to show up every day? The answers to those questions determine much of your life. I have 6 ideas to share with you on deep productivity. Not just sit down and do the work, because that's been run through enough, and obviously hasn't fixed everyone's problems. You need understanding. We need to dissect the psychology of focus, how distractions work, and finally, a protocol you can use to make your 1 hour day count. This is part 2 of the last article that seemed to break X. Sorry, Elon. This one will be just as comprehensive. A complete productivity masterclass, so you can get 10 books worth of knowledge from one article. My hope is that I leave you with no option but to feel clear on what you want out of life and how to get it. Because of that, this will be long. All I ask is that you dedicate your full attention. If you don't have the time, bookmark it and come back to it. Why it's so hard to sit down and do the work. The optimal state of inner experience is one in which there is order in consciousness. This happens when psychic energy, or attention, is invested in realistic goals, and when skills match the opportunities for action. The pursuit of a goal brings order and awareness, because a person must concentrate attention on the task at hand, and momentarily forget everything else. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Your mind is a supercomputer running the game of life. Your attention, an incredibly scarce resource, is the RAM. RAM, for the non-technical, means random access memory. It determines the performance of the computer. The more programs and browser tabs you have open, the slower your computer will be. The mind works the same way, but there's one major caveat. You have a threshold for how much your mind can process. Humans can process around 50 bits of conscious information per second. The unconscious mind can manage about 11 million bits per second. This is for things like walking, sensing, accessing stored habits or patterns, but that's aside the point. In other words, when you add it up, you have about 125 billion bits of information to use up in your lifetime. That's it. That's your potential. Every single thing you give your attention lowers that number by a small amount. That should terrify you. Sadly, most people live with multiple high-demand programs running at the same time. Their attention is split between thoughts about regretful past mistakes, thoughts about stressful future tasks, desires for pleasure and entertainment to escape those, and open loops of tasks they were supposed to complete but forgot about. I'm looking at you dudes who forgot to take out the trash. The list of distractions goes on, and that's the danger. If you understand entropy, you understand that by doing nothing with your life, it only becomes more chaotic and overwhelming. You don't stay the same. You dig yourself deeper into a rut without trying. The good life demands consistent effort towards your own goals. You know the feeling, when everything aligns and you enter a blur of fulfilling work. I want to show you how to replicate it. Entropy, for those wondering, is one of the most fundamental principles in physics. The simple version is that there are vastly more ways for things to be disorganized than organized. so systems naturally tend toward messier and often more chaotic states. Energy needs to be put into keeping things ordered. As an everyday example, if you don't put energy into maintaining your bookshelf, books will end up all over your house, at your friend's house, and in places you didn't think they could end up. The longer you go without organizing your shelf, the more effort it will take when you finally decide to. Further, if you don't put effort into cleaning your room, it will slowly get messier and messier until you're late for work because your good socks are under a pizza box from last week. Psychic entropy, or the mind tending toward disorder, can then be a useful metaphor to view focus and distractions through. This can be useful for creativity, as we will learn when we talk about a better type of routine. But when it comes to focused work, it's obvious why you can't laser in on one thing. You aren't productive because you don't have clarity. You don't have clarity because you allow your attention to drift toward one distraction, and before you know it, your mind is like the end of a frat party. People pass out everywhere, and you don't even know where to start cleaning. The good thing is that the solution is simple, but powerful. How to unlock insane focus on command. Clarity, importance, and urgency. Those are the critical ingredients that prevent distractions from penetrating your mind. Those are the requirements needed for deep focused work. To gain clarity, you need to choose a task that is challenging enough to be novel. If that task overwhelms you, you need to break the task down into sub-goals that you do have clarity on. Then, you execute and acquire the skill that allows you to continue moving to the main task. For you to find something important, you need to fully understand 1. Where your life will end up without achieving the goal, and 2. What your potential could be if you achieve the goal. Urgency is what gets you to sit down and work right now, rather than later. But we'll discuss the exact protocol for all of this in a few paragraphs. The simplest formula for reaching the flow state, or the most optimal state of experience, is to ensure that the challenge you are taking on is just barely above your skill level. Because think about it. If the challenge of a goal is too high for your skill level, you get anxious. If the challenge is too low, you get bored. In a video game, you wouldn't fight a level 100 character when you are a level 1. It wouldn't be fun, obviously. Imagine you're at a job. The work is repetitive and doesn't challenge you in the slightest. You get bored. And that boredom leads to self-centeredness. Your focus breaks and you start to think of better things you could be doing. Now imagine you're forced to speak in front of 1,000 people. You haven't practiced before. It's overwhelming, so you become anxious. That anxiety leads to self-consciousness. Your focus turns inward, and negative thoughts flood your mind about how you aren't good enough. But these aren't always a bad thing. They are only the enemies when you are trying to focus. And that's just it. People aren't focused on the tasks that will actually create the life they want. They get stuck in doing mode, a narrow state of stress that prevents you from registering ideas or opportunities that could change your life, and feel like they are worthless if they aren't being productive, because society has convinced them that productivity is the highest value. Boredom, in fact, can be a gateway to novelty. Anxiety can very well be the chaos you need for ultimate creativity. Your inability to sit in a room alone is likely the source of most of your problems. So what's missing? The answer lies in the fact that everyone works too much. 3. The routines of highly successful creatives. Fill your brain in the afternoons with books, learning, and socialization. Empty your brain before bed with journaling, planning, and meditation. Use your brain in the morning with creation, output, and focus. I've always had some form of aversion toward Western work culture. 80-hour work weeks, high-pressure environments, little time for rest and recovery. It never seemed right to me. It was mechanical, robotic, soulless. Why would I work on something I dislike, for people I dislike, knowing that my actions don't contribute to my future? Because if they did, I wouldn't have a problem working, because it wouldn't feel like work. Most people wear overwork as a badge of honor, but the artists, creatives, and visionaries we actually remember aren't participating in that imaginary race. The ancient Greeks, as an example, saw rest as a gift. It was the pinnacle of civilized life. Almost every ancient society recognized that both work and rest were necessary for a good life. One provided the means to live, the other gave meaning to life. It wasn't until industrialization that 9-to-5 jobs even became a thing, and now we can't imagine our lives any other way. Before that, most people were self-employed farmers and artisans. They directed their own work, which is going to be a critical decision one must make as AI continues to accelerate the automation of jobs. When we reverse engineer the lifestyles of highly successful creatives, we see the same pattern. They didn't grind 16 hours a day. Well, sometimes they did, but it was because they chose to, not because they were forced to. Massive difference. In fact, most of their time was spent in leisure. Yet they contributed some of the most important ideas to society that have impacted our lives today. They lounged by the pool, played tennis, or paced the grounds of the Apple campus, because they were one of the few people who realized what happens in the brain while at rest. That's when their best work was done. By the way, when I say rest, I don't mean bubble baths and wine. Most people use cheap pleasures as an escape from the life they hate and call it rest. Rest occurs when focus shifts inward. When you stop focusing on external tasks, your brain automatically shifts into the default mode network, which connects regions of the brain associated with visual thinking and creativity. The interesting thing is, our brains don't use much less energy in this mode. Even while you are at rest, your brain is still at work. It's working quite hard. This is the secret of successful creators. They take their rest because society is encouraging them to, and their brain lights up with ideas and they quickly jump down. Then when it's time for a deep focus session, bring those ideas to life and apply them to a meaningful project that leads to a future they desire. That is not complicated podcast to listen to. 8 comments, 3 activities, 1 that fills your life, inspiration, novel resources that apply to what your goals. This leads to intrinsic motivation, one that empties your mind. You don't want to distract with chaotic bubble of thoughts and useful ideas. That's exactly how you make zero progress. Write them down. One that uses your mind. You need a vessel to focus your efforts. A project, a business, something of your own that you can apply your education and ideas to. Learn how to change and fill knowledge gaps. Results in good dopamine from novelty and norepinephrine, which heightens attention, preparing you to learn. Passion that allows you to change your life. Results in more good dopamine, norepinephrine. Purpose, a feeling that contributes to hard work. Achieving goals results in good which reinforces behavior. Serotonin stimulates oxytocin stimulates desire to direct your own life, control choices, actions, and environment. Results in getting more dopamine, reduction of cortisol, stress from clear thoughts, allowing for creative decision-making. Process of learning and growing as a whole results in sustainable good dopamine that keeps you moving. You start with curiosity, experimentation, and find one thing that pulls you in. You become passionate and bold once enough effort is invested. You don't just choose your passion. You attach that passion to something greater than yourself, a purpose. You break off the default path and acquire the skill to be autonomous, direct your own work, often through entrepreneurship. You shift from shallow reasoning, making money, etc., to a philosophical sense of mastery, allowing you to stay in the game. You will understand how all of these come into play. Incorporate focused work. Your mind filters reality based on what it says. A man who perceives himself to be an ability to produce in some way, in spite of all his good intentions, or his good will, led to the cheap dopamine epidemic we find ourselves in. Our brain used to point out resources that would allow us to survive and thrive. But now there are so many distractions that trap in this overwhelming bubble of happiness. Our lives only become substantially worse unless we rip the band-aid off, laser in, and go to each of ourselves. Then, you are obsessed with that goal. Your mind starts to heal. Without curiosity, knowledge, skills, and actions required for your dream form of success. That leads us to how to structure your life to maximize this opportunity. Me, working to change my life. Be a routine. Help you. You may not realize you already have a routine that you didn't create. Your parents, teachers, employers, and society. Your routine is not a routine. It's still a routine. But we just want to be a routine. We want to ensure that what you are working on is meaningful, especially if you only have 1 hour to spare. The protocol below will help you determine what is worth that 1 hour of your time. Other than that, I would highly encourage you to take intentional rest throughout your days. Personally, I structure my days as a priority ladder. I write first thing in the morning, as that is my highest leverage task. In my businesses, I'm the distribution guy. The success of the company is dependent on how well my writing does. One post can reach millions, which is an absurd amount of leverage. Of course, that doesn't happen every time. For other people, especially if they haven't started on their own path, building the product could be the most important task to spend their 1 hour on. Then, once it's built, remember that there are 3 types of work: building, maintenance, recovery. They can start to shift their priorities around. I tend to structure my work blocks in 2 ways: productivity blocks and creativity blocks. 2 completely different modes of focus. One narrow, one open. I work on the highest priority task for block 1, first thing in the morning. Then I go on a walk as a creativity block. Remember the default mode network in the brain. On that walk, sometimes I read, sometimes I think, other times I try to solve a problem. Then I repeat the process for a few more rounds until that day's work is done. That acts as a hard stop for thinking about work, allowing my mind to do what it does best. With that out of the way, here's the protocol to launch into a season of intense progress toward your goals. 1. Vision and anti-vision. Become brutally aware of 2 things: what you don't want, where you will end up if you keep taking the same actions. Observe the masses and see where mindless action leads. It's not pretty. Sit with your thoughts here. It's easier to know what you don't want from experience than what you want from imagination. So create an anti-vision for your future. Sit with a notebook and get specific. Write out every single thing that you don't want and why. You should feel this deep sense of discomfort start to do it. Do not stop writing until you feel this. With that discomfort, get petty, like really petty. Write down exactly what your life would look like if you were able to create it from scratch. Think of the big goals you've always thought of achieving, but set on the bookshelf because they aren't rational. If your friends and family think you wouldn't achieve these goals, even better. In that same notebook from above, write out exactly what you are going to do to achieve those things. Write down every little thing you will need to learn. From the top down, your ideal future, to the exact step you must take. Map out what needs to be done. The last thing you are going to write down is all of the potential distractions standing in the way of the life you want. Success is less about being disciplined and more about removing the distractions that make discipline difficult. Next, disappear. Not from life, but from what is binding you to your old ways. These can be people, games, apps. It's easier to remove everything at once and deal with the pain than it is to tell everyone your plans and listen to their crab-in-a-bucket opinions. In other words, break your addiction with feeling horrible, usually due to giving time and energy to people, activities, and things that don't care for your well-being. Traditional goal, but a project turns that goal into a system. Create a note and brain dump everything that comes to mind. Save 3 to 5 sources of inspiration you want to emulate. Study those sources and break down their structure. Outline the project into sections, milestones, and what you need to learn. Now that you're ready to start, don't start learning. Start with what you know. Learning comes from struggle, not memorization. Start the project. Let it expose the gaps in your knowledge. Try to figure it out. Search for the answer when your mind is most likely to remember it. Lever moving tasks. Every single day, complete at least 1 to 3 priority tasks that move the needle toward completing the project. That is the only piece of productivity advice you need. A good rule of thumb is this: after 2 weeks, if you haven't made any noticeable progress towards your goals, you are not moving the right levers. Most people won't admit that, or they will intentionally do busy work to avoid making progress, because secretly, they want to fail. That's an even bigger problem. Your mind notices opportunities to achieve your goals, and many people have an unconscious or deeply programmed goal of staying the same. They want to fail. So far, our anti-distraction frame is composed of a vision, anti-vision, hierarchy of goals, projects, lever-moving tasks. This creates a tight feedback loop that encourages more flow states, enjoyment, and progress. That's the foundation. That's what pushes you deeper into the unknown. Lastly, how do you actually navigate the highs, lows, emotions, and uncertainty along the way? When you commit to building your own thing, you commit to a life of uncertainty, because you commit to a life of learning. The thing is, the most successful people don't flinch at this. They don't perceive uncertainty as something dangerous, so their fight or flight response doesn't go off. They can trek into the unknown with a clear head, allowing them to make proper decisions. How? Because they realize that all outsized gains lie in their ability to embrace, manage, and extend uncertainty. They realized that the certain life is the least rewarding. A job is certain, your paycheck reflects that. A business is uncertain, depending on what level you are operating at. Starting out with a local business, agency work, freelancing, or even information products is level 1. It's uncertain, but it's simple, and you have a cap of about $1 to $5 million a year before you need to increase the stakes even further by hiring a team or expanding the business model into something like software or physical products. The same goes for investing. You can invest your savings in a certain 401k. That's level 1. You can invest in the stock market. That's level 2. You can invest in businesses, Bitcoin, or even more uncertain assets. Naturally, those have the highest returns on investment, but also the highest risk. People are so afraid of making mistakes that they make the biggest mistake of them all, not making mistakes. Imagine a self-driving car. For years, it has received negative feedback that refines the system that shapes the mind of the car. It can navigate roads with ease and may be arguably safer than a human driving the car. Even though we often don't think of it like this, the self-driving car made millions, if not billions of mistakes before it could actually reach a meaningful destination. I wish I could tell you that everyone reading this can just see success the first time they start working toward a goal. But if that were the case, the goal would lose all meaning. Everything we just did is useful, but I cannot hold your hand throughout the process, nor can anyone else. You must go through the exact same process as every other successful person. You must invest in your portfolio of failures until you can afford to succeed.